Now, 25 years, or at least 25th official James Bond film, because it's much longer than 25 years. That film, details unveiled today, with the Oscar-winning actor RAMI Malek to play a villain. The movie still doesn't have a title. Cast and creative team has been unveiled at a launch event in Jamaica, with the Fleabag creator Phoebe Waller-Bridge confirmed as one of the writers. Film will be released next April, Daniel Craig's fifth and final outing as 007. And our entertainment correspondent Lizo Mzimba is at the GoldenEye estate in Jamaica, which of course was Ian Fleming's island hideaway, where he wrote the original Bond books, caught up with Daniel Craig.
Bond has always sort of adapted for the times. It's always sort of moved, but you're kind of dealing with a character who's flawed, who has issues, and I think that is something that's worth still exploring, and I think it's something that's worth kind of grappling with. And of course, you know, we wouldn't be movie makers or creative people if we didn't have an eye on what was going on in the outside world.
Well, that was Daniel Craig, of course. I'm delighted to say I've been joined in the studio by Anthony Horowitz, the author. And back in 2015, the Ian Fleming estate asked him to write a continuation James Bond novel, Trigger Mortis. His newest Bond novel, Forever and a Day, is a prequel to Ian Fleming's first Bond novel, Casino Royale. It's good to have you back in the studio with us, Anthony.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Tell us about this.
Well, this is my second one, which
yes.
I'm very excited with. The estate actually came back after Trigger Mortis and asked me for a second James Bond novel. I grew up with Bond. He's been an inspiration to me all my life. My Alex Rider books were largely inspired by Bond. And this one is, as you say, a sort of a prequel to Casino Royale, looking at the sort of few months before Bond became 007, or just as he receives his license, actually. The book begins with his first kill. It's interesting to hear Daniel Craig talking about the flaws in his character. But then to an extent, that's what this book is looking at too. It's looking at what turns this man into the cold-blooded killing machine that we've all come to know and love. What happened to him to make him that creature?
How did you get there? I mean, how did you make that journey in terms of portraying that?
Well, I love the books. I've known the books and the films, for that matter, all my life. And it's actually just trying to fill in the gaps. I mean, Fleming is a wonderful writer, and he gives us lots of clues as to what Bond's background was like. His obituary gets published later on in the series, and there are some clues inside Casino Royale where he talks to Mathis about the forces that made him and his sort of worries about being a spy and being a killer. So you look at them, you read the books, you immerse yourselves in them, and then I, as a continuation writer, extrapolate from them and try and create a sort of something that I hope Fleming would have admired and liked, and which fits in with what he had himself created.
Tell me about the different challenge presented by this compared with the first continuation novel, which we discussed in studio.
Indeed so.
And we talked about the challenge of approaching that. How was this different?
Well, in some respects, this was actually quite a lot easier. If writing is ever easy or hard, this was easier, if only because I had the confidence this time, because the estate was so happy with the first one, and largely the Bond fan clubs. You've got to remember, here we are today with the announcement of this new film, and all over the world, it's news. I mean, here we are talking about it on a news station. People love Bond. People are very, very drawn to this character, both in the books and on the screen. And I suppose the biggest challenge for me is to make sure that nothing I write gets in the way of that passion and spoils it for people. So I'm trying very hard to be true to Fleming, to raise my game. He was an incredibly good writer, and therefore I have to write that much better to be as good as him, which I'm not saying I can do, incidentally. So those are the challenges, broadly.
Because I'm sure there'll be some viewers watching thinking, OK, it's one thing to add or to take on the story. It's quite another thing to go before, to get before the process, to try to get behind it, if you like, and try to lead up to something which is already established. So that's what I was kind of thinking in terms of the creative process behind that. This
3-month gap before he becomes the Bond of Casino Royale, we know certain things from the book. We know there are 2 killings. One of them is in New York, the other is in Stockholm, and the second killing is a messy killing. We know that, and it's unpleasant. So those are the sorts of clues that Fleming gave me, and I sort of latched onto them and thought, well, what would it be like if you had just come out of the Special Operations Executive, you sort of naval intelligence, which of course is Fleming's background, and you are now working for M, and you're working in the sort of secret intelligence, and and you are asked to kill a person in cold blood in Stockholm, and it's your second time, really the first time hands-on. It's like me killing you now. What would it be like? And so you just have to imagine yourself into that. And when you're doing it with Bond, the parameters are very, very well drawn within the book. He's not going to go away and be sick in the corner, for example, nor is he going to help himself to a large gin and tonic. By and large, that's not his drink. So, you know, there are clues there, and you just simply have to use your own imagination. I've been writing for a very long time, and I've written many, you know, action thrillers of one sort or another, but I do it within Fleming's world and his rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's that immersion which is fascinating, given that you have a body of work which is very much your own, leading up to this involvement. So for lots of people wondering, you know, how on earth does an established, hugely successful author with his own style, his own brand, you know, enter into the world of Fleming and, dare I say, you know, add to it, add value and improve it?
That's very kind of you to say so. I mean, you know, it's an interesting job to do. I mean, don't forget, I am writing my own books. I mean, Alex Rider, there was a new book out only a few weeks ago in Alex Rider, and I do my murder mystery stories. I've just started a new one in there. So I have two strings to my bow, if you like. I have my own work, and I have these continuation novels. I wouldn't do them if I didn't really love Fleming. I mean, the whole idea of writing in somebody else's style with somebody else's character could become quite sort of tawdry and commercial and uninteresting. And I only do it because actually it's a wonderful privilege to write Sherlock Holmes novels and to live in 221B Baker Street for a few months, or to write a James Bond novel and to go into the world of, you know, secret intelligence in the 1950s, the Cold War and all that sort of stuff, to actually imagine what it must have been like to sit in the office with them. Always my favourite scenes in the films, incidentally.
Fantastic.
Bernard Lear as was, then Judi Dench, now Ray Fiennes. That scene where he gets his briefing, always as a boy that I used to love it, to imagine myself sitting next to Bond and listening and writing down what's being said. That is what I try to do in these books.
A very quick sentence. We saw Rami Malek there, who's a fantastic actor, of course.
Mr. Robot, wonderful.
He'll make a great villain.
I think that's a fantastic piece of casting, but I was particularly happy to see that all the old hands are there. Ralph Fiennes, Naomi Harris, Rory Kinnear, the team are back.
Great to see you.
You
and
too.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thanks a lot.